It's not all that unusual for games to have multiple endings these days. Good endings, bad endings, and maybe the occasional perfect ending as a special bonus for those prepared to jump through a few extra hoops along the way. But no matter whether you forgot to be a good surrogate father to Ciri in The Witcher 3, or which colour explosions you got in Mass Effect 3, all of these endings tend to stay pretty grounded in the realms of the game's setting. But what happens when the developers go off the rails and pull out an alternate ending that surprises, disarms, or laughs in the face of the game's general tone up to that point? Well, that's what we're looking at today. The instances where developers decided to take the time to include an alternative finale that's completely out of left field. You might wonder what they could possibly gain from such an act. Well, maybe infamy, or more likely, just a good old chuckle to themselves whenever they remember the silliness they have wrought. Whatever the case though, we hope you're in the mood for some nonsense, because we're about to look at 10 such outrageous finales right now. I'm Peter from TripleJump, and here are the 10 most bizarre alternate endings in video games. Number 10. Zombie Car Thief, The House of the Dead 3. While the House of the Dead franchise isn't exactly the most gritty and harrowing portrayal of a zombie outbreak, this alternate ending to Sega's House of the Dead 3 was still somewhat unexpected, and demonstrated this series' particular strain of infected shotgun fodder using a hitherto undemonstrated skill. In The House of the Dead 3, players take on the role of one of two protagonists, the mysterious AMS agent known only as G, or Lisa Rogan, daughter of longtime series frontman Thomas Rogan. Throughout the course of the game, this dynamic duo will be infiltrating a shadowy research facility and liberally sprinkling the undead abominations found there with flying lead. The game has a number of different endings depending on the path taken throughout the campaign and the overall rank achieved, and most of them are fairly standard, with the main cast escaping the facility and a potential sequel hook thrown in for good measure. But then, there's the ending where a zombie steals Lisa's 4x4 and drives off into the night, presumably to pick up some zombie snacks from the corner shop before it closes. Whatever he's up to though, that is an absolutely killer nonchalant look out of the window as he's driving away. Godspeed, car-stealing zombie. Number 9. Annoying Dog Becomes President, Undertale. Throughout the course of Undertale, players might have a number of encounters with a cute white dog, known in-universe as the Annoying Dog. This cheeky, adorable chap appears throughout Undertale's story without having much of an influence on it. Well, apart from that bit where he steals Papyrus's really cool bone and hides it under the sink. Aside from smiling, fluffy canines, Undertale is also known for its mind-bending story and multiple routes with numerous endings depending on the player's actions. Will you be a pacifist and unlock the ending where all of the game's denizens go free, or will you go down a slightly different route and become worse than all of the game's monsters combined? Or, and hear me out on this one, will you defeat all of the major bosses and no one else so that the annoying dog becomes president of the underground? I for one think it would be a great idea to put a dog in charge. Goodness knows most actual politicians can't seem to do the job properly. Unfortunately though, you don't get to see the pup's inauguration, only hearing about it from Sans over the phone. Apparently, the dog does absolutely nothing apart from sleep on the throne all day, but people are still pretty content. He's got my vote. Number 8. Enjoy the Crab Rangoon, Far Cry 4. Did you know that you can end Far Cry 4 early by just waiting around? Of course you did, it's infamous, but that doesn't make it any less worthy of a spot on our list. At the start of Far Cry 4, the villainous pagan Min's cruelty and psychotic tendencies are put on full display, and when protagonist RJ, who has a family business to take care of nearby, is invited to dinner at Min's breathtaking abode, it's understandable that the atmosphere is a little bit unsettled. During dinner, Min is called away and leaves our protagonist alone to enjoy the Crab Rangoon, providing RJ an opportunity to escape the eccentric despot. Most players will now get up, nose around a bit, and be swept into the game's overarching story of rebellion. But polite players who wait a full 15 minutes will find Pagan Min delighted upon his return, before flying RJ off in his helicopter to take care of his affairs, and then inviting RJ to finally go and shoot some goddamn guns. The credits then roll, and 0.01% of players took Far Cry 4 back to the shop for being the most disappointing FPS ever made. But hey, you can't please everyone. Number 7. I Ate a Mackerel, Nier Automata. It's no secret that Platinum Games' Nier Automata has a lot of miscellaneous endings. Most involve directing the cyborg protagonist to walk away from mission-critical events and disappear into the wilderness instead. But others, like the one where you slaughter a bunch of innocent robots, are a little more involved. Slightly more absurd than all of these, however, is the ending where the player can decide to have their protagonist eat a tasty mackerel. As you may well be aware, mackerel refers to a group of edible fish species that are high in omega-3 oils, good for us humans, but not so good for androids. Upon devouring said marine animal, your chosen android's muscles are overcome by the fish's congealing bodily fluids, resulting in paralysis and a sudden game over. This ending is called Ajiwokuta when mispronounced by a Brit, which translates to something along the lines of I ate a mackerel. And while we don't actually get to see the mackerel's effects take place, the mental image of the powerful and graceful 2B standing paralysed while emanating a slightly fishy pong is one that's easy enough to conjure. Apparently though, her last thoughts were about how exquisite the mackerel tasted, so at least she'd have a smile on her face, we assume. Number 6. Lahal's Tantrum, Disgaea 2 Cursed Memories. If you're familiar with Nippon Ichi Software's Disgaea series, you'll probably be aware that the recurring character and protagonist of the first game, Lahal, is a bit of an insecure brat. By the time Disgaea 2 Cursed Memories rolls around, he's gained a few levels and has engaged in a bit of character development, but he's still susceptible to losing his marbles when someone challenges his power. During Disgaea 2's campaign, there's an instance where the protagonist, Adele, faces off with Lahal in combat, and it's one of those battles where you're expected to lose. The little brat wipes the floor with Adele and friends, and the plot moves on. But what if you do actually beat him? Well, Disgaea is one of those franchises with absurd grinding potential, so it should be possible, right? Well, yes, it is possible, but it's still not exactly advisable. You see, if you do manage to put Lahal down, he'll go on one heck of a destructive ultra tantrum, summoning mighty fireballs and apparently blowing up the entire planet. God, all that grinding to be rewarded with a few lines of dialogue, a couple of swirly fireballs, and a credits roll. It just goes to show, it's sometimes easier to let the spoiled kid win. Number 5. Ice Cream, The Outer Worlds. Right, we're about halfway through the list now, and I think that calls for an ice cream break. Wait, what? You think I should finish the job before I eat dessert? Well, my protagonist in the Outer Worlds would disagree with that. Depending on your choices throughout the Outer Worlds campaign, you might end up face-to-face with Halcyon Holdings Corporation adjutant Sophia Akande, or the fugitive scientist Phineas Wells. Either way, they'll inform you there is still much work to be done, as there are plenty of grave problems still faced by the colony. Both parties will request your help in this prospective post-campaign world, but there is the option to refuse and focus your heroic talents on sampling some tasty ice cream instead. Cue a disappointed reaction from your chosen companion and a heartfelt voiceover describing your protagonist's intimate encounter with some delicious semi-frozen dessert.
You had more pressing matters to attend to. As you tasted your first scoop of Rizzo's partially emulsified, semi-frozen milk-like dessert, you realized something.
Perhaps the most interesting thing about this ending, however, is that it requires your created character to have a low enough intelligence stat to activate, proving not only that ignorance is bliss, but that ignorance is ice cream as well. Or something like that. Sorry, I wasn't really paying attention because I'm halfway through this tub of Raspberry Ripple. It's very good. Just talk amongst yourselves, please. Number 4. The game's ending. The Stanley Parable. As a walking simulator, the Stanley Parable has to rely on things like its clever narrative, experimental nature, and honey-voiced narrator to engage the player, along with its overabundance of possible endings, many of which take the player in unexpected directions. There's the ending where Stanley collapses face down on the pavement, there's the whiteboard ending where you look at a whiteboard, and then of course there are the endings that take a darker turn. Arguably the most unexpected though, even in an expectation-defying video game like this one, is the ending where the titular Stanley briefly explores other games. That's right, jump through enough narrator-aggravating hoops and avoid his instructions in just the right way, and you will unlock the game's ending, where you will enter a space the mysterious narrator had not yet prepared, a large, unfinished room with unrefined textures. Frustrated that Stanley doesn't seem to be enjoying his game, the narrator instead transports him to games he might actually like, namely Minecraft and Portal. It's quite the surprise, and one we'd like to see replicated by other developers. I mean, imagine finishing Dark Souls or something and being rewarded by being allowed to play Kirby for a bit. That'd be great. Number 3. Mr. Mushroom. Hollow Knight. The world of Hollow Knight is bleak and dangerous, a place where death, madness, and decay lurk around every corner. Hidden away in this dark subterranean realm, however, is a single beacon of life-giving nonsense, and his name is Mr. Mushroom. During Hollow Knight's campaign, the player must guide the protagonist, known as the Knight, around the caverns of Hallownest, seeking out and defeating numerous enemies and bosses. Among these creatures are the Dreamers, 3 entities who dream eternally to seal away the titular Hollow Knight. But once these beings are absorbed, a strange-looking fellow known as Mr. Mushroom starts appearing throughout Hallownest, and there's more to this fishy-looking fungus than meets the eye. You can often hear Mr. Mushroom before you see him, as he constantly babbles in strange mushroom speak and will spout riddles and vague words of wisdom if you interact with him while equipped with the Spore Shroom charm. If you find him in all 7 locations during this portion of the game, a secret ending will unlock showing Mr. Mushroom flying off into the stratosphere like some kind of fungus comet, followed by an intense close-up on Mr. Mushroom's face and a tantalizing "to be continued." What mysteries lie behind that cold, regal stare? Only time will tell. Number 2. Memory Lane. Chrono Trigger. One of the earliest examples of a game with multiple endings, Chrono Trigger became the foundation of the modern JRPG, and silent protagonist Chrono is an iconic figure in the industry. Except he's not completely silent, because if you unlock the Memory Lane ending, he will momentarily break the silent protagonist code to chastise his female companions Marl and Luca for objectifying the various boyfriend material characters they've met throughout the game. Hang on a minute, let's just back up a bit and figure out how we actually got here. In the epic, time-traveling tale of Chrono Trigger, players are expected to defeat the all-devouring monster, Lavos, in an epic encounter at the end of time, saving multiple timelines from this galactic-level threat. However, if this encounter takes place at different times and with different results, the endings can drastically change. The Memory Lane ending is activated by defeating Lavos at a very specific point in the story, at which point Marl and Luca will break the fourth wall by noticing the text on screen and will decide to have some fun assessing many of the characters they've met along the way on their potential as a significant other. Just girls being girls, I guess, until Chrono puts a stop to it and drags them off on another adventure. Just boys being boys, I guess. And number 1, of course, the dog ending, Silent Hill 2. Perhaps the most infamously bizarre alternate ending of all time is Silent Hill 2's dog ending. Unlocked by obtaining and using the dog key in the observation room, where it's revealed that a Shiba Inu dog called Mira has been orchestrating the game's events. That's right, all that misty darkness and emotional trauma, all those hideous, malformed creatures, a dog did it, and using buttons and levers on a giant sci-fi control panel, no less. After having survived the countless horrors of the titular town with sanity and skin just about intact, this last revelation is just too much for poor protagonist James, who sinks to his knees as the cheerful, headset-sporting pup gives him a friendly lick. Then the credits roll, accompanied by a very silly and jaunty song composed of growls and yips, and a somewhat unserious montage of in-game moments. Mira also appears in some other silly endings in subsequent Silent Hill games, often accompanied by aliens, like in the Silent Hill Shattered Memories UFO ending, where she is seen talking to an alien shrink about her mother. Well, your mother may well have been a B-word I'm not allowed to say on YouTube, Mira, but truly, you are still the queen of silly video game endings. And in fact, there's no better way to end a top 10 list video either, so we're all winners here.